As you make your way up the ranks of Overwatch, some things don't have to be stated anymore. But at some of the lower ranks of Overwatch, you constantly have to be telling your team to group up or not stagger. As you climb the ranks, this happens less and less frequently. This is what I would call universal competitive knowledge that you gain more of as you rank up. That being said, there's actually several things more that pro players know and do that your average player won't know, and it could be costing you game after game and might be the final barrier for you to rank up to the next rank and beyond. That being said, let's jump into the top 10 biggest things that Grandmaster players do and know that low rank players simply do not. Now, with all that being said, let's jump right into it, shall we? Now, the first thing that you need to understand is chasing down staggers. This is an incredibly important concept that I need everyone to understand because many players at all but the highest ranks don't get this right. When capping a checkpoint such as payload, king of the hill, or any sort of objective, you want to always chase down stagger. The idea behind chasing down staggers is you push up as a whole team to confirm the kills of the enemies that know that they didn't win the fight, so they're trying to regroup with their team or go back to spawn. What you want to do is chase these players down not only to give your team free ult charge, but it also extends the clock altogether. Chasing down staggers could also be one of the best ways in order to get snowball fights where you get ultimates before the enemy and you're able to win fight after fight. Let's take payload for example, something like King's Row. You take the first point, but once you cap, you want to only keep one person on cart while the rest of you push up and try to confirm staggers. If you can stagger the enemy team through streets, not only will you get more ultimate charge to try to snowball preceding fights, but it will take that much longer for the enemy team to full group as 6 players in order to have a full team fight with you. Well, sure, you're not pushing the cart with 3 people, that barely actually speeds up the payload, but the potential for you to snowball and win some free team fights based on pushing up and getting staggers as your team can be worth actually far more impact in the long run. Now, moving on to the second big thing that low rank players may not know that high rank players do in every single team fight is understanding when a fight is already won. I've seen it time and time again where 5 people will be up against 2 and those 2 people manage to get a pick and the 5 people panic ult and do something like grab or dragon blade only 2 people. The fact of the matter is what you need to be doing is analyzing in the top right corner exactly how many people you have alive, what ultimates you have, and when the fight is won. You don't want to be ulting into any fight. We have 2, 3, 4 numbers advantage unless the enemy invests serious ultimates into trying to win the fight. At low ranks especially, players will dump all their ultimates to win a team fight, and then they'll get held for a long time at the next point, or the enemy will take back the cough point instantly. Something you should do is if you notice all your allies around you using their ultimates in an already won fight, make sure that you're not the one wasting your ultimate. Sometimes going into a fight, it's better to let your allies ult instead of you because you know that they're all going to fire it off anyways. If you enter a fight with your Dragon Blade and your whole team wastes their ultimate, maybe it would have been better if you specifically saved your ultimate or had some sort of communication with your team pre-fight. Now, moving on to the third biggest difference between low rank and high rank is that high rank players will track the big ultimates. Now, the biggest problem with tracking ultimates in general is that there's so many and it's hard to track them all. Even pro players sometimes don't get the tracking correctly with ultimate communication. What you should try to be doing is track the biggest, most impactful ultimates. Things like defensive ults like Beat, Transcendence, or things like Gravitic Flux, Grav, Dragon Blade. These are the big ultimates that can completely swing fights. Knowing the enemy has a Dragon Blade can be really important and can tell you not to use your Beat aggressively. Knowing the enemy has a Graviton means that if you try to Nano Blade in, maybe you'll get Graviton straight into the ground. Understanding what the big ultimates are is the most important thing, and I know while you can't track every single ultimate, tracking the most impactful ultimates is the best start to have because those could fundamentally change how you and your team play every preceding team fight. Now, really quickly, if you want to bridge the gap between low rank and high rank, and you think that you have what it takes to become that high ranking Grandmaster player, then you should definitely come check out GameLeap.com. Now, moving on to the fourth biggest thing that high rank players always do that low rank players might not, is comboing abilities, not just ultimates. Especially in this meta, Orisa Pool is one of the best things to combo with, and it can be comboed with Gravitic Flux, Hanzo's Dragon Strike, and Mei's Blizzard. While players at every rank learn to combo ultimates together like Nano Blade or Grav Dragon, comboing abilities can be just as powerful if you learn to rinse and repeat. You can not only just combo ultimates with ultimates, sometimes you can combo abilities with other abilities, or abilities with other ultimates. Trying to be creative and trying to open that line of communication between you and someone you're trying to combo with can be one of the best ways to have guaranteed impact. Now, moving on to tip number 5, this is another form of staggering, not killing the enemy instantly. Now, what you can do is if the enemy is something that is low threat, such as a Mercy or a Diva outside a suit, you can actually stagger them and not kill them instantly. Sleep darting them, Mei walling them, or simply body blocking them, these players want to either kill themselves or regroup with their team, and you can wait until the last possible minute to do so. If the enemy ever pushes in to try to regroup, you can kill them, and then you can try to take the fight with the enemy as a 5v6, or you can simply shave some time off the clock while the enemy diva or mercy just tries to kill themselves off the map. This is a really minor tip, but this is something that high rank players know to do all the time. Identifying what's a threat and what you can stagger is a big thing, but most of the time, anything that has insta-kill potential or high mobility is something that you should definitely not stagger, because they could potentially get a pick and get out in a way that would actually lose you the team fight. Now, moving on to number 6, this is taking space without getting picked. Sometimes you don't need a full group. This is a really hard concept to understand, and I don't want to lead people on the wrong path, but I have to talk about it. So I'm sure in many of your games you have players pushing in as 3 people when 3 of you are still in spawn, getting picked, and honestly losing the team fight without full grouping. This is why you hear time and time again, you always need to group as a full 6 before you push in. This is actually not true, but I don't blame the majority of people for actually teaching you this. See, I consider this concept in 3 specific categories. Firstly is the most problematic. What I talked about before, trying to push in as 3 people when 3 people are in spawn, you're simply gonna lose a fight against 6 people. This is the worst possible outcome, and this is what you want to stop the majority of people from doing. So what do? You tell them to always full group before you push in. And this is the second stage, where you always regroup and spawn, and you only push as a full 6 players. While this stage is far better than the first stage of pushing in as a 3v6, it's actually not the best way and not the way that high rank players actually push in. The problem with waiting as a full 6 is you don't identify the scenarios where you could push in as a 4 or 5 man, take free space that the enemy team is giving up while still being safe enough to where the enemy team can't push you. Let me explain. Let's say you have something like a Mei, Baptiste, Arissa, and Hog. Sure, your other 2 characters aren't with you, but if the enemy team is giving up choke for free, a lot of times you want to push through it while you can. The enemy team can't easily push you because you have solid fundamentals, and if they do push you, you have enough resources to kite back until you get regrouped. And that way, if the enemy team aggressively pushes you, they might get punished themselves because they overstand into your group. And if you wait as a full 6, you let the enemy team get set up in order to hold the choke so they could push up, hold the choke, and make it that much harder to take the space for free. In this way, a high rank player will understand when taking the space cannot get punished, and it's a good idea to take space aggressively as opposed to grouping up. Then you can group up later after the space is already taken. I know this is a hard concept to fully grasp, but this is the last and final stage that many players master as they get to the highest ranks. Now, if you have any questions about that concept, it's probably one of the most advanced in the video. Please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to answer any misconceptions or anything that you have questions about. I really don't want to perpetuate the idea that you can push in as a 3v6, because that's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is it's not always correct to just wait and spawn and full group as 6 players. Now, moving on to the 7th biggest thing is abusing spawn advantage. This is something that high rank players will always do, and they understand what characters they can come out of spawn as in order to abuse that spawn advantage, particularly on 2CP. Let me take this for example. You need to identify if it's your job to actually stall the point physically, or if it's your job to actually try to win it, and if the fight is winnable at all. Let me really break it down for you. Let's say one of your allies goes ham and you know that the point will be contested for a little bit. You could switch to something that has high pick potential, something like Doomfist or Widowmaker. These characters might not be able to contest in the same way that a Tracer or a Mei can, but they have the highest capability to turn a fight. One punch from a Doomfist can actually get a pick. A couple headshots from a Widow can completely turn a team fight. In this way, you understand in order to actually win the team fight, you need to abuse your spawn advantage by cutting off the enemy's sources of sustain and getting actual picks. This way, you identify that someone else on your team can stall point, and you understand that if you can get some picks, you can abuse that spawn advantage and the fact that y'all keep trickling out in order to actually win the team fight. Sure, if you come out as something like Tracer, you could stall the point for a while, but to be able to actually get a kill to turn the fight and win the fight is much harder on something like Tracer than it is on something like Doom and Widow. High-ranking players will understand the difference between needing to play a character that stalls the point or playing a character that actually wants to win the team fight. Now, moving on to the 8th biggest tip on our list, this comes down to changing playstyles, not character pick. You see all the time high-level players will play a character seemingly into their counter, but still get value. Maybe you're hard carrying on Hammond and the enemy picks a Mei. Sure, you could simply swap off, but then you're not playing your best character, and the enemy team is simply forcing you to switch off your best character just for existing. What high-ranked players will understand is when they can simply change their playstyle in order to actually get the same amount of value, if not more value, or they understand when they have to swap off and what are those scenarios and what do they mean. If you want to see a video covering the top 10 biggest heroes that are countered and ways to actually change up your playstyle in order to still get value out of them, please smash that like button and let me know in the comments down below, because it's been a concept that I've been thinking about, but I want to make sure that there's interest in understanding how to play against some characters' hard counters. You know, things like playing a Pharah against a Widowmaker or playing a Genji against a Winston. I can tell you exactly how to get value against your counters and when is the actual scenarios where you need to swap off, or the scenarios where you can just simply change your playstyle and still get tons of value. Now, moving on to the 9th biggest tip between low rank and high rank is knowing when you should not be taking a 1v1 or knowing when to run away or not fight at all. Sometimes there's things called a high risk 1v1. Let's say you're on a flank as a soldier and you run up against a Hanzo. Maybe you're on defense, but you don't want the enemy to snowball a point. While you could aggressively take this 1v1 and try to win it, the safer option would be to regroup back with your team, contribute regular value into the front line, and use your spawn advantage to win the fight convincingly. You getting picked here could be the entry pick that allows the enemy team to roll through your team, so you understand that this is not a 1v1 that you have to take, and you don't feel pressure to take it. That being said, there are tons of other scenarios where you understand maybe the enemy team is already getting value, maybe they have tons of ultimates, and you know that in order to actually win the team fight, in order to actually hold, you need to aggressively take a 1v1. And that's the difference between low rank and high rank. A lot of low rank players will always take the Widow 1v1, they'll always take the Hanzo 1v1, they'll always aggressively take these duels. But a high ranking player will understand you don't always need to take a 1v1, and sometimes maybe it's better to take a 1v1 where you have inherent advantage. Maybe you have your cooldowns back online, maybe you have a pocket, maybe you can set up a 2v1 scenario so that you don't have to take these 1v1 50-50 matchups. Instead, you can fight a matchup when you are at an advantage, or not fight the matchup at all in a way that you just contribute regular value to the team fight and you're more guaranteed impact level instead of potentially getting picked off yourself. Moving on to the last tip that we have, the number 10 is giving up ultimates to counterpick. This is something that high ranking players understand to a T, but low ranking players have an extreme problem understanding. If you're playing a character that's getting completely hard countered, but you still want to stay in order to get your ultimate, you really need to be thinking about a number of things. How much of the enemy team countering me, and how much do I think I'm going to get out of my ultimate? I've seen a number of games where a Hammond will go in, get countered because the enemy will swap Mei Sombra, but they'll go in another fight in order to use their ultimate. Then, in setting up for the next fight, they get picked again, or someone on our team picks again. Then, setting in the next fight, we might go in, but they don't find a good opportunity to use their mines, and then it goes on, and by the time they actually use their mines, 2 minutes is already burned off the clock, they haven't swapped, and they haven't started building up the ultimates for the character they're gonna even swap to. Something that high-ranking players will understand is how much perceived value they think they'll get out of their ultimates, and they're really hyper-realistic about it. Sometimes it's better to instantly swap to the character that's not getting hard countered and maybe counter the enemy team's composition. Then they can start building up ultimates for the character that they swap to. Now, if you like this video or any of the videos we've been releasing lately, then you should definitely come check out GameLeap.com. GameLeap.com has even higher quality videos than the ones that you find on our YouTube channel, handcrafted by Grandmaster players to ensure that you have the most quality guides available. I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't think it would help you and help you become that Grandmaster player in 2020. And the best thing about it is, you don't even have to take my word for it. GameLeap.com offers a 10-day money-back guarantee, so come check us out risk-free, and I hope to see you there. Anyways, that's all I have for you today about the things that high-ranked players do and know that low-rank players might not know. I hope this guide has been extremely helpful for you. Any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, as well as any video ideas. I would love to make whatever you want and the community wants, but I need your feedback. I need you to know if you want to see more support content, more tank content, more specific VOD reviews, a Ryan VOD review, or a Royce VOD review. Just let me know. I'll make anything you want, but you gotta let me know. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.